The EU is a very interesting thing because you are allowed to work, if you're a European citizen, you're allowed to work in different countries. But each country, like in the US, each country has its own mental health laws that you have to abide by. So if, for example, if you're a Belgian citizen and you are a licensed psychologist here and you move to Germany, you have to get a license in Germany. It's also opposite from the States in that you need to be licensed where you live.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Traveling Therapist Podcast. I have a really cool guest here today. I'm really excited to share her story. I know it's going to help a lot of people get inspired and, move to different places and learn how to navigate that. So I know I'm going to say your name wrong too. I should have asked you beforehand. Dr. Liz Shuler is here with us. Is that right?
Yeah,
awesome.
Great.
So Liz, thanks for being here. I would love if you would open up and just tell us, how'd you go from being a traditional therapist to a traveling therapist?
Right. So I got my master's degree in mental health counseling in 2014. And about a year after that, I want to say, because it was a late 2015, my husband got a job offer overseas. And It was kind of a weird, it's a weird thing. We moved to Jordan, which is in the Middle East, and he's a brewer. So he was brewing beer in the Middle East. Yeah. Wow. It was kind of a crazy thing.
Oh my gosh. That was the job to go brew beer in the Middle East? Oh, that is amazing.
Yeah. And so it was something we couldn't pass up. And it was kind of a quick thing. So from the time he accepted the job offer, so I was still actually accruing my hours for full licensure. And I needed to find something that wasn't private practice, because that's what I was doing back in Wyoming. I was doing private practice to accrue my hours. And I found an international counseling community. So there's in a lot of international hubs, they have peer consultation groups and things.
Nice.
That kind of pop up, and it's really awesome. And they helped me find a job opening at an international school.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Yeah. So
and that counted towards your hours?
Yep, it sure did.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, everything worked out amazingly. I also, in that group, found a supervisor who was from Wyoming.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so a lot of coincidences.
Yes. That is amazing.
Right. So then we were there for about 4.5 years and decided we wanted to go a little bit further east. So we decided we were going to move to China. We moved for my job there. And then, of course, COVID happened.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
We moved in August of 2019. So we were basically in China for the whole lockdown, for the whole border closing. The border opened up about 6 months before we left, actually.
Oh my goodness. And when was that? How long were you on lockdown like that?
Yeah. So not until December 2022 did the border reopen. Yep.
Yeah. Was that scary? Are you just being in another country, or is it just kind of whatever, we're just dealing with it? Okay.
Yeah. I think it was the hardest part was not being able to come home and see family, because if you left the country, you couldn't come back in. It was very, very difficult. Yeah. But otherwise it was fine. I mean, there were some crazy things that went on, but nothing super crazy, I think.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I could just talk to you about that for a whole hour. But gosh, that I don't know why that just makes me feel so anxious thinking about being locked down in China, like you said, not being able to come back and see your family, or come back to China if you left, I guess. Right. And you had a job there and your stuff is there, everything.
Yeah.
Wow. So you go ahead. I was just gonna say, so you transferred to China because of the job with the international school. Is that how you got to China? Okay.
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah. So we wanted to do something a little bit different, move out of Jordan, and I got a job in China. We were looking in sort of East Asia. And during this whole time, I kind of had a small private practice on the side where I was
Okay.
seeing expats because it's
Oh.
really difficult in especially the Middle East and the Far East to find English speaking therapists for expats.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was doing a
Yes.
little bit of that on the side and also doing a little bit of coaching for like professionals who are expats and things.
Hmm.
And we ended up moving to Belgium in June of 2023 for my partner to go back to school. And here I am. I've opened my own practice. I'm doing coaching because I'm doing psychedelic integration coaching here. And then I'm also
Wow.
doing therapy.
That is so cool. So many questions.
All right, I'm ready.
That's just amazing. Okay. So, all right. So in China, you were just still doing your private practice. So were there any regulations in China that, said you weren't allowed to practice there back in Wyoming in your home state? Was there anything like that that you had to navigate? Because I know people ask about China all the time.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's there are a lot of mental health laws in China, but they
Okay.
don't really pertain to expats. So China
Mm,
is very much not set up for foreigners,
okay.
for tourism, for foreigners who are working there. It's all about local Chinese people,
Hmm.
which is great because it also means that if you set up a private practice back in the States, so basically you're paying taxes in the States and you're only seeing expats, so you're not seeing local citizens, you're basically free to practice whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that wasn't a problem at all then.
No. And the
That's
same
great.
is true in like Jordan, a lot of the Middle Eastern countries.
Okay.
They don't really want to regulate foreigners. So an American helping an American with therapy, they're not going to get involved with that, right?
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, okay. So it's generally pretty okay. Because
Yeah.
really we get that question all the time. It's like
Mhm.
how do I even find out if it's okay? And that's the hard part too a lot of times is just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
thankfully, because I was a school counselor, I had a lot of access to all of the mental health laws on things like that. So I was able to do a whole bunch of research, talk to people in, legally in the local community and figure those things out. Again, it's kind of a gray area because
Yeah.
there aren't laws for foreigners, really. All of the mental
Hmm.
health laws in places like Jordan and China are about locals, people who live there, people who went to school there. If you're a foreigner, you are mostly beholden to the rules of wherever you're from.
Gotcha. Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Good distinction. So with the international school, I guess you're working in China, you're being paid to work in China. How do you manage taxes with that? Because we get that question a lot too. Like if I'm working for a company in another country, like how do I deal with that part?
Right. So in most international schools, they will pay your local taxes for you.
Okay.
And you have to continue to file US taxes if you're an American citizen, just because it doesn't matter. As long as you're an American citizen, you're filing taxes back in the States, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, because I didn't know. Do you have to pay over there too if you're like essentially working there and helping the people
Mhm.
there? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really
yeah, you
interesting.
do pay local taxes, but again, a lot of the schools basically reimburse you for that.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so then, and you were also into coaching too. So I'm just curious, like, how did you get into the expat coaching? Were you just sitting in Jordan and you were like, oh my gosh, I'm out to lunch with these expats and I could tell they need help. Like, how did you figure that part out?
No, I had a client back when I was in Wyoming who I was doing professional coaching with because they didn't need therapy. And I'm also a yoga teacher. So we were also he was coming to my
Oh,
yoga
nice.
classes and we were doing those sorts of things. And so it just kind of grew from there.
Mhm.
It's also interesting because that's kind of where I got into the psychedelic integration stuff. And a lot of my clients were coming to me saying, I've done, psychedelics for recreation or at festivals or whatever. Now I want to try and do it to kind of for personal development or professional growth or things like that. And so that's kind of where that started.
Oh, that is so interesting. Yeah. Okay, so you moved to Belgium because husband wants to go to school there, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how's that going now that you're in Belgium? Same idea that you're paying taxes back in the United States, you're seeing clients back in the United States. Expats, no. She's like,
No,
nope.
no. So
She's nodding
Western
her,
Europe
she's
is
shaking her
much
head.
different.
Okay, tell us everything.
Yeah. So the EU is a very interesting thing because you are allowed to work, if you're a European citizen, you're allowed to work in different countries. But each country, like in the US, each country has its own mental health laws that you have to abide by. So if, for example, if you're a Belgian citizen and you are a licensed psychologist here and you move to Germany, you have to get a license in Germany.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Even if it's just practicing with people back in the States or, okay. Yes. Oh, yes.
So it's also opposite from the States in that you need to be licensed where you live.
Ah, that's
so
really important to hear.
I can work with clients all over Europe and they don't care as long as I am in Belgium.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. Okay. So what did you have to do to get, I guess, is it called licensed? Is that what they call it in Belgium?
It's, so my case is a little bit different and it's going to probably be different for a lot of people who got their master's in like social worker counseling in the US because most of Europe will not say that you have a master's degree unless you have done a master's thesis that has original research and statistical analysis.
Oh my gosh, something I definitely did not do in my master's program.
Either. Yep. Oh so it has to be either a correlational research project or it has to be like a quasi-experimental or an experimental research thesis.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. So you didn't do that. So how did you navigate that?
So I didn't know that when we first started, this whole move and everything. Mm-hmm. So in like June of 2022, we knew that we were going to be moving in 2023. Okay. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start the process. So I was looking into, and Belgium is also a little bit weird because there are 3 like regional governments. And so depending on where you're going to live, those are the people that you have to look for degree equivalency for. So I applied for degree equivalency in Flanders, and it took them until June of 2023 to get back to me.
Whoa, really?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
The bureaucracy here takes so long and it is so crazy. So you really have to plan ahead. And it's easier to do actually if you're already in the country because they get really weird about residency. And basically, when they got back to me, they were like, you don't have a master's degree in Belgium.
You're like, yes, I do.
Yeah, I do. And with all of nothing in like the requirements said anything about a thesis, right? It asked for your thesis, but it didn't say that you had to have one for equivalency. So just so that everybody knows, you're going to have one.
Wow, that's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Yep. Yeah. So what did you do?
I got rejected and they basically told me I only have a bachelor's. And I was like, I went back and got my doctorate. So like, no, that's not true.
It's like, how dare you?
So I just focused for a while on, starting my coaching business and getting that through.
Okay. And that's what I was going to ask. Cause it was did you say December 2022 when you got to Belgium? And then like you had to wait until June?
Yeah, we got here in June. So it was a little bit after we got here. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you had already submitted before you even came to Belgium. Okay, well, that was smart. Yeah. Okay, that worked out.
Yeah.
So sorry, I interrupted you. So you said that you were just like focusing on building the coaching business instead. Okay.
Yeah, and to do that as a foreigner, you have to apply for what's called a professional card to be self-employed.
Okay.
Right. So I focused on that, got that all figured out by October. So it took me from June to October just to be able to start working.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
Yep. As a self-employed person. Now, if you come and you're employed somewhere, that's different. If you're employed somewhere, you can then work on a side business without any of that on your work visa, but that's not how we came. So visas
right. Vary. And most of us, right, are pretty much self-employed. I think most people that listen are in not working through a private practice or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the therapy jobs here are contract work. So you're going to have to get your professional card here. Mm-hmm. So I worked on that and I started building that up a little bit and was like just furiously researching right through this whole time because I was like, there has to be some sort of loophole. And when you come to Belgium, a lot of people will tell you everybody is really, really strict about following the law, but they're also really good about finding ways around the law.
Okay.
It's kind of like a national pastime here.
Okay.
So I was just doing a whole bunch of
hilarious.
research, and I came across a law that said basically if you had been practicing as a psychotherapist before 2016, you could continue to practice even though you're not
Oh,
registered.
oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah. And so just to be sure, I ended up emailing like the Federal Health Service, and they got me in touch with the Federal Council for Mental Health Care Professionals. And it was kind of a back and forth for a while. I sent them my degrees, I sent them proof that I was practicing before 2016. And it wasn't until, oh gosh, the end of February, actually, when they got back to
Wow.
me and said, yeah, you can practice as a psychotherapist. You can't call yourself a
Gosh.
psychologist, which is what everybody here is. Everybody is a clinical psychologist, even
Wow.
if you just have a
Yeah.
master. But you can
Hmm.
call yourself a psychotherapist and you can do psychotherapy.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the process for would you call it the personal card? Is
The
that what
professional card.
the professional card? Yeah. So what was that process like? Oh my
Yeah, that's
goodness.
involved as well. So
Oh,
you have to have a business plan, you have to have a financial projection for 5 years, and they send you a template, but they send you a template that's in Excel and in either Dutch or French.
yeah.
Yep. And it's very, very like I had to have an accountant do it for me
Yeah.
because it was
Okay.
just so beyond what I know about financial stuff, right? And then you have to write like a cover letter, you have to have references. It was just a whole packet of things that you have to put
Oh my
together.
goodness. Were you ever just like, forget this?
I was
I
like,
guess your husband really wanted to go to school there, so you kind of had to.
right. Well, there are a lot of people who just say, screw this, I'm not doing this. And then
Yeah,
basically end up opening a business back, like wherever they're from in the US,
I
right?
see.
Opening a business there and then doing all of their business through that. Our goal is to have citizenship here eventually. So I didn't want to go
Okay,
that way.
I see. I
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah, I was going to ask, is this like temporary? Because it's a lot to go through if it's
right,
temporary. Yeah.
right.
Al is a comprehensive HIPAA compliance solution that helps you manage your practice, meet with your clients virtually through video therapy, manage client appointments and client records seamlessly, streamline your claims process, and communicate with clients securely through Al's client portal. Visit alpractice.com/Kim Tolson for an offer of 50% off your first 6 months.
So there is a way that you can, and Belgium is actually pretty okay with this, that you can have a business, a foreign business entity, and be here. Not, you're not working in Belgium. You're technically working from the States or whatever it is. That's where your
I
business
see.
is.
Okay. So if you had a private practice, like an LLC or something, and then registered it as a foreign entity, I guess, is that how that works? And then
No,
basically they would
you
accept
wouldn't
that? Oh,
register it. It would be
okay.
registered in the US, and you would just not say anything to anybody.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And as
Yeah.
long as you're on a temporary residence permit. So for example, my husband's a student.
Mhm.
I'm not technically allowed to work unless I get a professional card.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if we were going to leave after his degree, nobody would care really.
Yeah, right. If you were just there temporarily doing your private practice back home, and then when he
Yep.
finishes up, y'all are out of there. They're like, whatever. Okay. So interesting. But y'all decided to stay there? Is that like you just love it there, or is whatever he's doing in school like I'm just curious about like wanting to stay because as a digital nomad now for like 2 years, I can't even imagine settling down anywhere. It's kind of a weird thing. It's like, will I ever settle down again? But I just love stories like this. It's like, did you find this country and you're like in love with it, or is there another reason?
Yeah. So first of all, my husband has family here. So that's
Okay.
one reason that we would like to have citizenship here. But
Hmm.
our plan is to get citizenship in an EU country so that then we can move around the EU
So
and work.
smart.
Mhm.
Instead of having to worry about that Schengen thing, right? Where you have
Ye-
to for those listening, 90 days in, 180 days out of the EU, basically, right? Because we're trying to plan 90 days in Europe, like how can we see everything in 90 days and then get back out and you have to literally be out for 180 days. Yeah.
Right. So if we have citizenship here, we have freedom of movement and we can work wherever we want to in the EU, and we can stay, we could go to Italy and stay for 5 years if we wanted to, or, move around. So it just gives us a lot more freedom in the European Economic Zone.
Okay. Now, is citizenship easier because your husband has family there already? Like I hear about these like ancestral citizenships, I guess. I can't even think, but they're dual citizenships because like heritage wise, you've got family from there. Is that, right. I'm just curious, like, does that help or no?
Not in Belgium. No. In some European countries, that's true. So for like Italy, I'm pretty sure that's true. In Germany, they might have repealed that, but it used to be true. But Belgium, the thing about Belgium is it's hard to get here.
Okay.
To stay here.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah. So the citizenship requirements are basically that you've stayed here legally 5 years. You haven't taken from social services or whatever, you've been able to support yourself. And you have an A2 level of either Dutch or French, which is a very low bar. That's like elementary level.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, good. Yeah. That makes it a little easier. Interesting. Okay. So did you have to learn French? I guess is it French you're more proficient in, or is it Dutch?
So yeah, I've never taken French. We're in Flanders, so we're in the Dutch part. So
okay.
Actually right now preparing for the A2 test for Dutch.
Oh my goodness. How's that going?
If you're an English speaker, it's actually not very hard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there are going to be some like sounds that are a little bit difficult to make with your throat and things like that. But living in Jordan, we learned a little bit of Arabic. And so some of the sounds are similar. So it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but there are a lot of words that are very, very similar. And that like,
are there?
Yeah, if you read something in Dutch, you can pick out one of every 10 words probably.
Oh, so you could probably just figure out what it's saying anyway. I'm going to have to try that later just to see how it goes. Yeah, that's really cool. So, okay. So right now your husband's in school. So does he have to worry about like citizenship or any of that stuff, right? He doesn't need to worry about that yet until y'all decide to live there. But I guess you're both working towards that anyway, the citizenship piece, or is it like you get citizenship and then he's just kind of grandfathered in anyway because you guys are married? Like, how does that work?
No, we'll both have to apply for citizenship separately.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. So just as far as your business goes right now, so how do you have that structured? Like, what are you doing? Is like private practice and coaching? Or are you into the international school stuff at all? Just curious how that's going.
Yeah. So I have some connections in international schools, but a lot of the time they're looking for more local resources. If, a family member or somebody can't find something in the local area, that's when some of my contacts might contact me for that. But what I'm doing for therapy here is mostly EAP work.
Okay.
Or some local
back in the States. Oh, for local EAPs.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So how did you get connected to that? Sure, people would love to know.
Yeah, it's just a lot of research. So looking at LinkedIn profiles and doing, a lot of Google searches about employee assistance programs in Belgium or in Europe, and then just sending out a resume and a cover letter and seeing if anybody wants to hire me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So EAP in Belgium, is it kind of like the same as in the United States? It's like a benefit of a healthcare plan or of a company? Okay.
Yeah, so it's a company. In Europe, it's mostly companies who buy the employee assistance program for their employees. Yep. Okay. But it's sort of the same thing. You have, 8 to 12 sessions or whatever your employer has bought for you. And then you go through your counselor there.
Oh, okay. So how does that pay? I don't know if you want to get into that. Does it pay okay? Or,
no, it's fine.
I know EAPs in the US are like not that great a lot of times. I mean, some of them are, but some of them pay really terribly. So I'm just curious, like, how's that pay?
So when you come to Europe, expectations for Americans need to be very, very lowered.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the US, income is really high, but wealth inequality is really high, right?
Mm-hmm,
In
mm-hmm.
Europe, wealth inequality is creeping up, but not nearly as bad as in the US. And medical prices, salaries and things are very low as far as US standards,
Gotcha.
but they're livable. So, for example, a good salary here in Belgium, like a good salary is 30,000 euros a year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But
So,
that's enough to like live on and feel comfortable
yep.
over in Belgium. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. And what were you going to say? Sorry.
It's okay. So when you look at prices for therapy, it's usually between 60 and 80 euro an hour.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, like about half what most therapists report getting.
Yes.
Around 140, 160, I guess, is what I hear. 150 is kind of the standard rate I hear, unless you're like in San Francisco or something, or,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. So, it's interesting to me. I just wonder why you prefer to go that route instead of just like really fostering a big private practice back in the US and just seeing clients remotely. Is there like a reason you decided to go that way instead of just doing like the traditional, like a lot of people I talk to on this podcast, most have their just private practices and they manage time zones and that sort of thing. But I'm just curious for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of it is because a lot of my coaching clients are going to come from the US
Okay.
just because of the nature of what I do. Part of
Yeah.
it is because I do have to have, for my professional card, there are renewal requirements.
Oh,
And one of those
gotcha.
requirements is that I have some Flemish clients. And part of it is because I'm only licensed in Wyoming back in the States, and there are
Mm-hmm.
very few people in Wyoming.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. But you're going about it in a really wise way, I think. I mean, you're making it work, based on what you're trying to do. So the psychedelic piece, I had a whole episode on that, and I just find it so interesting because I don't know a lot about it. But are you able to do any psychedelic stuff in Belgium? Like, are they
Yeah.
accepting of
So
that type of therapy? Yeah.
my whole business plan is based around psychedelic coaching.
Oh,
Mhm.
interesting.
So as
Okay.
long as I am not providing the psychedelics,
Yes.
then it's fine.
Okay. So the person I interviewed before, she said back in the US, like she has a doctor basically that can prescribe
Yeah.
and she facilitates, the doctor administers and she facilitates like the therapeutic part of it. Is that how that works for you?
Yeah. And
Okay.
but because of the legalities and the things, around it, it's just easier if I'm doing from Belgium and in the US and in the EU to do coaching
Mm.
instead of therapy. So I'm not taking
Hmm.
on anybody who has like a diagnosis or anything like that. I'm mostly doing it for personal and professional development and for wellness.
Ah,
So if you feel okay, but you still have some stuff you want to
yeah.
get better, we can do that.
Mm.
Because psychedelic assisted therapy here is still not a thing. It's not
Hmm.
something that is in the professional zeitgeist. But in the Netherlands, right next door, you
Hmm.
can get truffles, psilocybin truffles, you can get marijuana. There are a lot of things that you can do. There are retreats that happen over there. So it's kind of like seeping into Belgium a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So did you have to find a doctor in Belgium to help with this, or is it a different process?
So because of the way it works in the Netherlands,
Uh-huh.
you basically just order something and have it mailed to you.
Oh my gosh, really? So there's
Mhm.
no medical oversight. That's interesting.
So a
Wow.
lot
Okay.
of what I do is my doctoral thesis was on psychedelic assisted therapy. And so
Oh,
I like to do a
interesting.
lot of preparation around
Mhm.
what substance are you using? What are going to be the side effects of that? How can we do this safely, right? And making sure that people
Yeah.
are not getting in over their heads or doing something unsafe because there's
Hmm.
there's not going to be any oversight for them.
And you're remote too, right? So it's like, so in my mind, this is how it goes. I have no idea, but that they get this mail order thing. Y'all have done some pre-work, and then they're like, "Hey, I'm going to take the mushrooms at 1 today," and you're like, "Okay, it should kick in around 2, and I'm going to log in and do this with you remotely." Is that how it works, or no?
No, I
Okay, you're
can't do
like,
that. I
no.
can't do that either because if I
Okay,
do that, so if I
yeah.
provide or if I'm there when they are partaking, then I am involved in
Oh,
criminal activity.
wow, interesting. Okay, like I have no clue how it
Yeah.
works. That is interesting.
There are people who
Okay.
do that. Like it's a very
Okay.
underground thing.
Yeah.
But just because, I'm foreign here, I'm not a citizen, I'm on a
Yeah.
professional card, I have to be really careful about how I
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
Yep.
So they'll take the psychedelics and then like you'll have a session the next day or something to process what they I guess they journal or somehow record their thoughts or something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And there are a
Oh.
lot of apps now that,
Mm-hmm.
are trip apps that if you're having, anxiety or something that comes up, they have prompts and things that can help you with that, which is really nice. It's not as good as having somebody who knows what's going on sitting with you, but it's
Yeah.
better than nothing. Most of the people that I work with, I make sure that they at least have somebody who they feel safe with that's there,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't want
I
them
think
doing it
that sounds
alone.
smart.
Yep.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it's preparation and then integration afterwards. And I mean, some people that I work with, like I said, have been doing psychedelics for years at like raves
Hmm.
and recreationally.
Hmm.
And now that it's more in the zeitgeist about how it can be helpful, they're like, oh, maybe I should do it that way instead. And so
Yeah.
they have a lot of experience with it. They don't need all that preparation. They know what it's going to be like. And we just do
Hmm.
mostly the integration stuff.
Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
really enjoy it.
Yeah. It's really neat. I don't know. It freaks me out a little bit, but only because I probably did some psychedelics in high school or whatever, and I hated it. So it's so weird, but I know it's so helpful for a lot of people. People
Yeah.
love it, and
Mhm.
they really transform just through like even one time with
Right.
it, right? It's really eye-opening for people. So interesting. I'd love to read your thesis sometime, just to see what you found out. You said that was your doctoral thesis?
Yeah, I actually have it up
Wow.
on ResearchGate, so I can send you the link if you want. Yeah,
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 we could even put it in the notes if people want to check it out because I'm just so curious about it. It's really interesting.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my whole thesis was on how to do what I'm talking about, psychedelic assisted therapy online safely and effectively. So,
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, because it's like, how do you do it remotely? But I hear what you're saying. You don't do it with them, at least in this situation. I know people do. Like you said, it's underground, which is interesting too. It's like, should it be underground? Like maybe it's safer not for it not to be. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion probably.
yep.
Wow. And then I know we're running out of time, but another cool thing I loved in your bio, because I'm this entrepreneurial type too, I saw that you had another little side hustle. Would you tell us about that for a second?
You talking about Insight Timer?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I found that, gosh, like my second year in Jordan, because I was
Uh-huh.
looking for, meditations for the kids to work with and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just really fell in love with it. And I was using it myself for, years and years. And then I realized
Yeah.
that they allow you to be a teacher. So you can do meditations, you can do courses, you can do talks, and they have a premium version, which you can
Okay.
add stuff to, but most of
Hmm.
their stuff is free. And as a
Yeah.
teacher, depending on the number of plays that you have, you still get paid for those free tracks. It's not a lot,
Wow.
like it's not going to be your whole living, but
Yeah.
it's enough to be able to give back to people and also make sure that you are getting a little bit back for yourself.
That's so cool. I never even thought about like looking on there to like apply to like put my stuff on there. I was before we hit record, I was sharing with Liz that I back in 2008, I created one of the first apps in the app stores for hypnosis MP3 downloads. It was like, I
Mhm.
think it was the second or third in the app store. Now there's a million, of course, like
Right.
Calm app and Insight Timer and all this stuff. But yeah, I never thought about that, looking into a platform like that where you could just put your recordings and help other people with them. Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah, it's great. And it's nice to be able to have for, clients. I don't have to
Mhm.
give them like a whole library. I can just send them a link and be like, this is my stuff, but if you want to use
Yeah,
somebody else's stuff, like there's a whole library here for you too.
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, thanks
It
for
really
sharing
is.
about that too. Well, thank you so much. If people wanted to reach out to you, get help around like navigating Jordan, China, Belgium,
Yeah.
where would they find you? How would they reach out to you?
Yeah, you can send me an email. It's eschuler at innerevolutioncounseling.com or innerevolutioncoach.com. I've got both. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn. So
Cool.
Inner Evolution Coach at both. And I, anybody who needs help, I'm there. I'm also on the Facebook group for the traveling therapist, so reach out to me there too.
Yeah, and we'll put all of your links in the show notes so you guys can reach out to her if you need to or you want to. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. I really
of course.
appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you for talking with me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.